Right in some people you don't see very often.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Come on.
Hi,
Hi.
Sharon.
Hi. Good to see you. I'm
Good
back.
to see you. Good to see you. Cold, man.
Oh, it's a little cold outside.
Is it?
It's starting to sprinkle a little bit.
Hi.
Good to see you in your house.
All I had to do until tech school started was get out in front of the barracks in the morning. Here we are, and we're free for the day. Just got to prove that you're there. And we had freedom around the base.
Uh-huh.
And for the first time, we didn't have to march to chow. Well, we did, but not. We had to form a group and let no less than 10 go at a time to. There was a big base, lots of mess halls, and we could go to anyone we wanted. While I was in that, I went to sick call there, and they said, "Oh, there's something wrong with your feet, and we're going to put some pads in your shoes." And so they did that, and I went back to the barracks 2 days later. I could not get out of bed. Then they decided to check things out thoroughly and found that I had rheumatic fever. I was in the hospital there for 2 months.
Oh, wow.
And I was sure they were going to kick me out of the service. When you had something like that, it was usually so bad that you were done with them. One guy had just died before I got there, they told me. Another one was about to get discharged, and another person had been there. This was a hospital ward with only rheumatic fever people in it. For some reason, I didn't get let out. They decided to keep me, and so I
was
finished.
gonna let Marilyn sit there. No.
I finished tech school. Everybody else was shipped all over the world, but they came to me and said, "How would you feel about being trained for an instructor here at Biloxi?" I said, "Why not?" I didn't want to go anywhere out of the country. It didn't appeal to me.
Hi, Art.
Hi, sweetie. And this time, again, there were actually 7 of us that were all picked to become teachers at the base. And we were waiting for school to start to train us to be teachers. And so we were there another 3-4 weeks, something like that. And they called us all to the orderly room and they said, "You're not going to be teachers after all. You're all going to experimental radar stations in Massachusetts." And mine happened to be out on Cape Cod. The rest of us went. There were 7 other remote radar stations out there, all working with MIT on experimental radar, different types. And transistors were just coming into being, but we didn't work with them. We were still using tubes. And I got to see one of the world's biggest computers on the college campus. It was called Whirlwind, and it was about 65 by 65 with 2-foot aisles and plug-in tube circuits from floor to ceiling. All those with 2 feet apart. We got to see it, so that was about all because we didn't work on that. We hadn't been trained for that.
What year was this?
1950.
About 55,
About 55, yes.
a long time ago. And then I met a girl out there, and she liked Arwin, and we both liked each other. She was Gail, the blind girl that I talked about, yeah. And so she came to Michigan one time, and she was gonna ride the horse for one, and she was gonna do other stuff that they can't do in Massachusetts. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was a fun, interesting time.
And then, oh yeah, we can't forget this part. When we came home, we were both tired because I had drove from where?
You drove from, actually, the New York state line.
Yeah. And a dog came across the road and I killed it. And I said, I gotta stop it. He says, no, we gotta get home. And I started crying because the poor dog was laying in
We were crashed for sure. We were going too fast. The dog was under us before. And there was no point. He was laying on the road. He didn't limp off.
Yeah.
So he was surely dead.
Shirley. His
So
name was Shirley probably.
it was just an unfortunate thing. But
Yeah,
So how long were you on the Air Force?
4 years.
There,
Okay.
see?
And then what'd you do when you got out?
When I got out, and I didn't really know what I was going to do, for sure. I had a girlfriend out in Cape Cod. I kind of wanted to stay there, but she was going to graduate that year, and her parents really liked me. I spent a lot of time over there. And her dad was a self-employed plumber. Because the family liked me, he said, when you get out, you can join me in the business if you want to.
Well,
You
that
never
would've been
told me
good.
that.
Yay, let's
know.
do
I
that.
never heard that part.
Then we could all go there to see him.
Well, because Carol was had already had her mind made up, and she was a really smart girl. She wanted to be a nurse. So she wouldn't come, going to get to see her at all anyway. So
Right.
because of that, I went home instead.
We never got to see her.
No, you left her out there.
Left her out there.
That's a
I
good
didn't
thing to
see-
do sometimes.
I didn't see her anymore after that either. But I had friends out there. I heard about her all the time.
Right.
So did she get married?
No, never got married.
How about that?
Oh, poor baby.
And she became a nurse and a full professor at the University of Connecticut.
That's pretty good.
And some other people from out there let me know that it was funny that she died with type 2 diabetes,
How old was she?
about 3 years younger than me. About the same age as Betty.
Right.
Betty was
So
2
you
years
can-
younger.
So you came home back here, and then you got a job.
I can't
When did you
remember
get-
exactly.
Government job.
No, when did you get that radio job?
That came after, I went to junior college that year. 2 years of junior college in Muskegon.
And
because
then you went to Florida to college.
Yeah, not right then. 2 years after. 2 years I went to junior college, and then because I had the GI Bill, and it was not enough to pay for college, so I went to work. I found various jobs. I worked at Norge, worked at Brunswick,
Worked at the foundry, worked at the,
at Hooker eventually.
yeah.
Home after Norge. This were all just jobs, and I had seniority at Continental. I was going to school just because of the option to go, but I needed a little more money, so that's what I was doing. I was gathering up funds so that when I went back to school,
Yeah.
I didn't have to work all the time through that. So I came home from work. That's my after I got back from
Another like that, so you can see.
and Mom said I wasn't going with Betty yet.
No.
Mom said somebody called from the radio station. They wanted to see you.
Oh, yeah, I worked at the radio station.
And I said, okay. So out I went.
And he was really good at it too.
Well, I wasn't, not at first.
Well, no, but
Because then the manager of the station said that he needed a salesman, that I want to be in sales. And so we came to an agreement. He wanted to put me on commission, but I said, no. I got to have a salary, not a draw, nothing that. I'll sell. I'll do the best I can. If it's not good enough, we can part our ways. That's it. And so he was happy with my selling. I didn't like it especially. He couldn't really go far. It was exceptional. Do you ever try to sell something that people can't see? And then when it's their turn to be on the air, they miss it.
How long were you on the radio?
I don't know exactly. Well, so one day after my sales for the day, I came roaring into the radio station at 5 o'clock like I'm supposed to do, to turn in my sales slips and explain where I'd been and all that.
I can't, it's too heavy.
And the guy, the manager handed me this packet of papers and said, here's the late news. Go in this room over here. When the light comes on, read. Somebody called and said they weren't coming in today. Okay. Then I go, I read. I get out, finish with the news. Says when the light goes out, you stop. Somebody will do a commercial, whatever. He apparently liked my voice and what I did. And he said, from now on, come in before 5 and we'll put you on the news at 5 every day.
The other guy got fired?
No, the Browns, they're busy while they.
He probably quit. People did that all the time there. They didn't even give notice for the most time. They just
Quit.
didn't show up. That's
Wow.
it.
Olden days, you just quit if you didn't like something.
So he said, you come in Saturday morning and if you want to, I'll train you for the control board and you can write to the FCC and get you a temporary license. So I did that and I worked on the air there for, I was in the afternoon at first and just Saturday mornings. Then the morning guy quit. And all of a sudden he said, you can have any shift you want. I said, I'll take the mornings. So that's what I did. And I was on there until I gathered together enough money.
Wasn't it at least a couple hours, years so?
Oh, yeah, it was,
Yeah.
it was a year
Yeah.
or two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then you went to Fremont.
Not till I got back from Florida.
yeah, you went to Florida first.
So then I got enough money to go to the University of Florida. I went there one semester. Of course, I picked the winters because I didn't want any of that
Nice.
snow.
Of course.
So I'm
Smart man.
Who knows?
I'm down in Miami for the whole
Semester.
winter,
For the winter.
Oh,
but as long enough to know that I don't like Miami. It was hot every day, rain every day.
You went
And
the
when
other
it was
golf.
cold,
You went the golf side, not that side that you were on.
I was on the Gulf side.
Miami's on the golf side? I
It
was
kind of
thinking,
splits the both of them.
Yeah, it does, kind of.
oh,
It's right down there on the end, you know, you can go either way. Atlantic Ocean, Gulf of Mexico. So when I came back from there, again, I didn't work for the summer. And so I didn't know for sure what I was going to do. I had money put together. And all of a
Put together
sudden,
money.
the guy I worked for in Whitehall at the radio station, he was gone from there. He had gone blind in the meantime. He had, can't think of the name of it, plasmosimosis. You get it from
Say
cats.
that 3 times fast.
oh.
His name was Bruce Van Houten. So Bruce was blind. He lived in a house right next to the radio station in Fremont and asked me if I wanted to go to work in Fremont. He had the afternoon shift open. And I didn't have a job, I had nothing to do, so I did. I still wasn't married yet. I was going with Betty by that time.
What year is this?
Good gracious, what year was that? 59 or 60?
what year did you get married?
63. 1963.
Oh,
For 54 years we were married. That's,
That's unusual.
I was 2 when you were married then.
What? You were
Yeah.
2?
and she
So I
made all the
stayed
design
there,
of
and I was still waiting. What I was waiting for was to get called back to Continental or to finish school. Now, when did I finish school? I got called back to Continental when I left the Fremont station.
Dad was working at Continental.
Yeah,
Right.
and I got called back to Continental. But before that happened, I had gotten upset with Bruce. I got married in the meantime at the radio station, and I had a long drive back to Fremont every day. And I came home and I told Betty, I said, I got to get out of there. And I'm not making enough money, and I had my degree by then,
What was the degree in?
Teaching.
education. It was teaching.
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 And what's Continental?
You haven't ever heard of it. It's Continental Motors. First they made lift truck engines in one plant, and in another plant, still in Muskegon, they made tank engines. The bore was over 6 inches, 12-cylinder air-cooled engines.
So you got married, and then after you worked at the radio station, what did you do after that then for like most of your married
Work
life?
years, you went to
Yeah.
Continental.
Continental and worked.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
In
Like
school.
then I got laid off a few. Well, no. After that,
Teach you.
I
taught, right?
That's when I got into hooker. I
Oh,
got
I
another
forgot
long. I
that.
got another long layoff. Oh no, that was. I was still working at the Whitehall radio station. No, I went back there. Oh, that was another time I was laid off. All management had changed. The radio station had closed. and it reopened. I was drawing unemployment, and I went to Muskegon, passed there to see what was going on. Oh, there's a car there. Oh, I wonder what it is about. So I went in there, and there was this manager from Grand Rapids. I didn't know him. Tom Ambrose. He'd been on TV some. Anyway, I said, I worked out here when the station was first started many years ago. Oh, man, 4 or 5, whatever. He says, oh, do you have your license? I says, yes, I have a first class. First class? And his eyes lit up. He said, do you need a job? And I said, well, yeah, I do need a
Oh,
job.
well, if you insist, yeah.
He says, well, what do you got to have? And I'm thinking this over. I'm in the driver's seat here. I might as well
Yeah.
ask for it
some
big.
money.
So I asked for the same money I was making at Continental. Why not? Without batting an eye. He said, when do you want to start?
Oh.
Now, Arwin, what was that you said for the children? And
Oh,
Oh, my burnt toast and coffee
yeah, his
time?
burnt toast and coffee time. He had a
After-
segment.
Muppet.
Oh.
His Muppets? or
Yeah.
Muppets.
His-
Muppets.
The Muppets
his-
are off to school. Mama's home sitting down at the coffee table finally and taking a brief rest. And we'll join you with burnt toast and coffee time. And then I play music for a bit.
It was burnt toast and coffee time because all the Muppets were off to school.
Oh. Cute.
That's how he started.
And that was a segment of his,
Okay.
when he was at the radio station.
Nice.
He had that segment.
Did I have my degree then yet? I don't remember for sure. But it was during that time that while I was working at the radio station the second time in Whitehall. They changed managers 3 times while I was there, and each time I got a pay cut. And so by now I'm getting a little upset, but after all, I'm going back to Continental as soon as they call me. And I'm 5 minutes from home, and Betty was working, and we were doing okay. So we get this new manager who not only does he not have a license, he knows nothing about the towns or the areas.
Was that little short guy?
Yes.
Oh, he was a funny guy.
No, it wasn't funny at all. He comes up to me after
She
I'm
means
off
strange,
the air.
strange.
Off the air in the morning, and he said, I want to see you in my office after you go off the air. I was done at 10 o'clock usually.
Right,
Those were my hours then, so, and no Saturday work. He
right.
said, from now on, you're going to stay a full 8 hours, and you're going to work on Saturdays. And if you don't like it, you feel free to look for another job. Well, of course I didn't like it. He knew darn well there were no jobs out there, or I wouldn't have been there in the first place. On my way home, I stopped by chance at the tannery in Whitehall. Now, we had an uncle that worked there, Adolf.
Adolf's body.
He was the
My
superintendent.
mother's brother.
He was my uncle, our uncle. He was a superintendent. And I said, do you have any jobs? He says, it just so happens we're putting on a new process and we have an opening. If you go down to get your physical and come right back here and you pass it, you got a job, you can start tomorrow morning. I could not hardly believe it. So I passed the physical, I went back and I'm all set to go to work the next day. And I go right straight out to the radio station. And I said to the guy, you told me this morning that if I didn't like your ultimatum that I was free to look for another job. I said, put my last paycheck right there. I want to see the green. And, and I won't be back again. Well, you can't quit just like that. I said, what did you tell me when I left here?
He said, if you don't like it, you
You
can
can look
leave.
for another job. I said, I've got another job. Oh, where could you find work? I said, that's up to me, not up to you. And so put the check in my hand and I'll say goodbye. I think he was gone in 3 months.
But I wasn't like that. I was a wimp. If somebody said something wrong, I started crying.
And I don't know what happened after that because
You probably closed it.
I was at the tannery until they started laying people off. And I don't know, there several months. Then I had to look for another job. Well, or go teaching. I didn't know for sure what I wanted to do. So I went out to Hooker. They made chemicals for industry. and for food service. They made muriatic acid, and they made a product called C56, which was a fire retardant thing, wholesaled for $1 a gallon, and when it came out of there by the tank car load, and it was a potent. It was deadly. It was.
Was that where Roger Lipka died? Did he fall in the
No.
bath there? He
He was
fell.
at DuPont.
Oh,
He was
DuPont,
at
okay.
I went out there and filled out an application and turned it in. The employer officer was there right there. He said he didn't have anything for me right then. And about that time, here comes another guy in, and he goes straight into the hiring guy's office. And I asked, I knew the guard, and I said, Jim, I said, what's that guy doing here? He says, he's coming here to work in the lab. And he said, well, what lab job is open? He said, well, Roger Schmidtconnect left here, and that job is open. This guy's going to take it. I said, well, I didn't know you needed a lab technician. I've had college chemistry. I can do that job. And he said, just a minute. And he went in and he told the guy in there, this guy's a friend of Roger's. Oh, he is? Bring him in. Just by saying the right word and
You
knowing
do
the
that
right
in
people.
small towns.
Yeah.
And so they hired me, only because I opened my mouth at the right time. And the guy that came in to work there, he got a better job out on Niagara Falls.
So that was good for him too.
Good for him too.
Yeah.
And so I worked there, but I didn't tell them I had seniority. I just told them I worked at Continental. I didn't say any more than that. They wouldn't have hired me. I didn't know that. So I was there about a year, and then all of a sudden Continental calls me to come back again. And I told them that
Okay.
I had to go back to Continental, but I could give them 2 weeks' notice
I'll type it.
and borrow on my vacation time. So that's what I did. I went
My
to
dad worked at Continental.
and
Oh.
all the time that I worked at Hooker, I was on salary, and I was supposed to get time and a half for the overtime that I worked. Although I was on salary, they still had to pay for over 40 hours. And I had, tons of overtime. And when I turned the time in to the pay clerk, she was mean old witch. And she said, you're not going to get paid overtime. You make too much now. So I just kept writing it down on my little book and keeping track of the hours. And when I had an exit interview, you know what that is?
Mhm.
You
Oh,
don't.
what?
You know what they are. Exit interview.
Yep.
Yep.
Why do you like this place? Why do you leave? And how did you get along with the people and all that? What do you have any complaints? I said the only complaint that I have is that I worked a whole lot of overtime and never got paid for an hour. The guy's hair stood right on end. I didn't realize they were liable for a lawsuit and a terrible big fine. He says, do you have track of your hours? I says, yes, I do. I said, well, I'll give you the notice. He said, don't bother. You can leave right now. And for all those hours, I don't know, it was better than 2 months' pay. And so they paid me all that overtime, all in a lump sum right then. Of course, I had to pay extra on the income tax, but nonetheless,
It worked.
Wow.
it worked. And they said, you'll never get another job. You'll never get another job in this area at all. We're going to blackball you. It didn't
That's
seem-
okay, I don't want to come back anyway.
So where was
But-
this
But
at?
I was, before I left there, Betty and I talked it over, and I got a blast of chlorine gas, and it was several hours before I could really see again. It may have injured my lungs, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to go back. Well, we talked about me staying there because I'm 5 minutes from home. The pay is good, and now I'm going to get overtime pay. And Betty said, no, I would rather you get away from the chemicals.
Yeah.
I said, okay. They pay wasn't as good as Continental anyway. It was just close to home and had other benefits. 2 months after I got back to Continental, they closed the Hooker plant. Where would I have been if I had decided to
They
stay there?
closed that
Wow. Yeah.
They
Wow,
got
that was
caught-
great timing. Wow.
because of the
Incredible.
chemicals.
Lord,
Yeah.
washing over.
Yeah.
that was
definitely. Well, thank you so much for
Wow,
your
that was a nice
history. It was.
a little big.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to show him the photo?
At night, I look out and I wave at
Well,
Brian out
yeah,
there. He's
sure.
out there and
Right.
he's out there checking on things.
No,
make
he's
sure
not. He's
What?
back with the base, wherever that is.
Georgia.
Yeah.
So he's
What
considering.
state?
Georgia.
Oh,
He's,
Georgia.
he's considering.
A career, probably.
Well, he wants to be a warrant officer. You know what that is?
Yep.
Fly helicopters.
Yep.
He's considering that, but
Why
he
didn't
has
you
to
go
go-
with the drones?
he has to go a 3-year school, 2 or 3 years down there. You know, and then after he gets his license, then he has to have a 10-year commitment.
Right.
Well, that's
And
not
then
too
so
bad.
he's like, well, if he's going
Yeah,
to do
maybe
that, then
even
he might as well
10
stay another 5 years to get his
Right.
retire and pension.
Retired and pension.
So we're talking another 20 years. Otherwise, he'd be out in 3 more years. If he just did the drones, then he'd be done in 3 more years.
Well, he might as well.
He might
His
as well.
work is. He get paid good. He get officers' salaries as
Yeah.
as a warrant officer,
Yeah,
or he could go to
And he
officers'
can send
That's
candidate
my
school
time for girls.
yeah, he
and
could.
work his way up that way. They get paid better than warrant
Lieutenant.
officers.
Aaron's
So
Aaron's daughter's in the Navy,
Yeah.
and she's going to Japan in May. This will be her 3rd time
Oh,
in
is she?
Japan.
What's she doing there? I
She-
thought she was just in reserve now. Or is she?
No,
No,
she's
she's
making
making
a
a
career.
Career.
Yeah,
She
career.
is?
Yeah.
She's been
What does
in
she do?
Okinawa
What's
for
she
2
been
years.
trained?
She's
She
been in
works-
Bahrain for 2
She
years.
repairs
and
certain
now
parts
Japan.
of airplanes.
Airplanes.
She is in planes?
Nice.
Yeah, she
Mecha-
does the planes.
mechanic.
She mechanic. on
She's a
the planes.
mechanic in the.
On airplanes.
Nice.
You see some of
Wow.
those genes that you guys got, and my nephews and my cousins all got. Skipped me somehow.
Randy's mechanical too.
And you don't know when you're mechanical. You just know you can do it. I worked in Howmet forever, and
I know I can't do it, so.
and
that's
I was
that.
in the wax department,
Mm.
which I was the work leader, so I had to do it. And
That's what
they
I-
called me many times from the room that they fix
You know what?
our machines.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so-
Fran got her car fixed someplace one time, and she was incensed at the price. And she said she just knowed she got a screw in. So
Yeah.
from now on, I'm going to find out all I can about cars. And the high school had an automotive class.
I went, Franny and I both went.
So, but nothing took with Marilyn, but with Fran, it took, and she then from then on, she was changing her oil and filters.
I can do anything in a
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
And
And-
But it just
Jaden
comes,
can
I
do
got
too.
smart.
Jaden and Janet
Okay.
can
And
too.
so she goes,
Good.
and whenever she took her car in for repairs, she says, I want to see the parts and what you did.
Yeah.
And nobody ever bothered to give her a hard time about, like they did to Marilyn
Right. Take her
with her
for-
car at the Ford
And I have
dealership.
no
That's what I
idea
do.
why I know that. It just came in my head.
Yeah.
But Marilyn's smart because she went to that duty school while working full time and
Yeah,
got that
I-
license. She
Well,
practically
I
had
was
to memorize the book.
trying to get this guy off my mind that I really like. I thought, that'll take my mind off of it, but it doesn't work. Well, at 80, I gave my license up. And you know what they said? I called them and I said, I won't be sending my money in for a renewal. And they said, well, you will have to send your license back then if you're not gonna.
Did you do that?
I
No.
did not.
When you get done driving, do you have
She's a
to,
brown, stubborn.
when you're done driving, do you have to send your license back and say, well, I'm not gonna be
Then
driving
you-
anymore?
Yeah.
No, not if you decide not to drive on your own.
No.
Yeah.
And they told me I had to send my license back because
Well, they
I
were
wasn't
afraid
gonna
that she
have
could
my
post it
duties.
and just
Yeah.
still work.
Right. Right.
That's all.
Betty made this.
Betty made a whole lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
That is
So
his wife,
those
and
two
she
girls
made
that
all
took
that
them-
stuff.
You realize it took them girls
4
years
Four
to
years.
carry the fabric down from
And then
upstairs
see
to
that
give
fabric
away.
there? It's
I was part of it,
you know
but
what that is?
I've got a
It's
blanket
quilt. It's one
on
of
his
these
bed in the
things
basement.
It's a
And when
blanket.
I know what I was
And I
doing,
took it and wrapped it around the
I'm
pillow.
keeping that
Oh,
one.
okay.
It's-
That's nice.